Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a long overdue, I would say, part 2 of my Breyerfest prediction video. So part 1 we looked at all the different variations that I think could be on the special run models and the limited edition, well the special run models basically. Which are already been proved wrong in one case, but today we're going to look at the big one, the one that everyone is always stalking social media in the morning, waiting, what is it? We're going to be talking about the surprise horse. And as usual, Breyer is giving nothing away. The name gives us no hint. So we're going to do some educated guesswork. And the reason this video has been so late is actually because I'm waiting to see what the raffle horses are, what the live auction models are, because that's a pretty good indicator, because so far they have never used, the surprise model has never been on the same mold as something that has appeared in the auction. So that's the reason this video is a lot later than I'd originally intended, because I couldn't see the point in putting out a video that would immediately be disproved. So I want at least a little chance of getting it right. So let's get on to my guesses about who the surprise horsey could be. So I think before we get on to who the surprise could be, it's important we're going to take a little look at the history and see the trends for the surprise horse. So the surprise horse has been a part of Breyerfest since 2009, which was when it was first introduced. This was the quarter horse gelding mold, which was just called the surprise model. And one of the things I'm taking note of is how far a gap there is between when the mold was introduced and when it was actually used as the surprise horse. Because usually Breyer basically don't like using vintage models for the surprise model. But this year was the one difference in that rule. They used the quarter horse gelding, which was a 49-year gap from when the mold was introduced to it being the surprise model. And then 2010, the surprise model was so successful they didn't do it in 2010. But by popular demand, it was back in 2011, which was ethereal. In 2006, the mold was introduced, and that was called the Spun Gold Surprise. And then since then, we've had Flash, we've had Roxy, Nakota, Lonesome Glory, A Spirit, Loping Quarter Horse, Smarty Jones, Andalusian Stallion, Gazelle, Australian Stock Horse, Cleveland Bay, Racking Thoroughbred, and Standing Thoroughbred. So yeah, you can see obviously I'm going to put these on the screen, but you can see a trend of usually the gap in between when they're introduced, the mold is introduced, and when they're a surprise model is anywhere from, the smallest gap we've had, I believe, has been 3 years, which was 2021. And the longest, apart from the 50-year gap, is usually about 18 years. They tend to go for molds that are popular, but not too popular, in quotation marks. So fan favourites from a few years ago, where the hype has started to die down a bit, so people aren't going to actually hurt each other over getting these models. But they're still really popular, so everyone goes, oh yeah, that was a nice choice. So there are a lot of Breyer traditional molds. I will put how many there are on the screen. There are a lot. And we are going to work our way through every single one and rule them either out or in. So we might as well get on with it. So the first thing to say is that it's not going to be a foal. They've never used mare and foal sets. I can't imagine them doing that for the surprise. So we'll get rid of all the little babies. Sorry, babies. We can't rule their mothers out because we've had Giselle as a surprise horse, which obviously we go with Gillen. But we're going to take out all the foals. Another thing we can quite quickly rule out is that it's not going to be a mold that has previously been a surprise horse or that is in this year's Breyerfest lineup. They're not going to use a Shergar because Shergar is the celebration horse. And they're not going to use an Arabian mare because the Arabian mare is being used in the limited edition. So that gets rid of a few popular ones. We can chuck them out and move on to the more complicated business. Now we've got rid of the easy ones. One of the big things I think we can safely do is, as you have noticed in the history of surprise models, Aside from the first one, Breyer does not use vintage molds for these. Just as a general rule, vintage molds tend to be less popular. I know people will disagree with that. I disagree with that. I collect loads of vintage ponies. But for the general consumers that are interested in Breyerfest, we can rule out pretty much all of the vintage prior to 2000 molds. I'm gonna, as it's the 75th anniversary of Breyer, I've left some iconic ones in the running because I do think there is a chance it could be like the Fighting Stallion or something like that, and I would love that because I would love that mold on some new colorways. But let's be honest, like, we're not going to get a Running Stallion or a Misty's Twilight or a Rugged Lark anytime soon. So we can get rid of all the ponies that, I'm sorry, I appreciate you. You're not popular enough to be the surprise model. And after we've ruled out all of the models that are too old, we can also rule out 3 molds that are obviously too new, which are the 2025 Premier Club molds. It would be really strange if they would be released as the surprise when they've not even been released to the general public as the Premier Club models yet. So yeah, we can chuck those out the way. There are also a few other molds that we can just randomly rule out. Like, we can rule out the Clydesdale Stallion, as he is the open show prize model, as well as the raffle models, which are on the Lady Fays and Aminar molds, and also the Spanish Stallion, Dundee, as he's the volunteer model this year. And another big factor, and the reason this video is coming out so much later than I'd originally intended, is that basically the surprise model has never been on a mold that has appeared in the live auction lots. Now, Breyer this year have decided not to reveal all of their live auction models before the weekend, so that makes it harder to predict the surprise, but it does mean that we should be able to rule out Othello, which, thank God, the Gaming Stock Horse, 5 Gator, Cantering Warmblood, Misty, Gem Twist, Acautique, Fighting Stallion, Marabella, Huckleberry Bay, the Vanamare, and Albrozo, who's basically out of the running anyway, but I did have a little bit of a fear about that. The surprise horse has also never been a pony mold other than Flash, which was right back at the start, and also Flash he is small, but he is still quite a large pony. So that gets rid of ponies like Bouncer, the Cantering Welshie, Fell Pony, Icelandic, Newsworthy, anything like that. I think there would be so many complaints about people going, but it's so tiny, like with Nicholas, when they used Nicholas for the celebration mold a few years ago. So we're now getting through to like the last few, even though there's still quite a lot. And we've still got a few on the list that, even though they could technically be the surprise, I just don't think that they're popular enough to be the surprise. So I think we can rule out like Spirit, Rain, Boomerang, because they're just like too cartoony. They have their fans, but they also have a lot of people that wouldn't like that sort of thing. But this is also where I'm going to rule out some of the models like Big Ben, the Missouri Foxtrotter, Mustang Mare, Wixom, molds that are still popular but just don't have a wide enough fan base, I don't think. And I'm also going to tentatively rule out the American Saddlebred Stallion and Western Horse because they've already been part of Breyer's 75th anniversary collection. So the surprise model is usually not also a new regular run mold that year. So we can probably also rule out ones like Geronimo, Destado, and the Working Cow Horse. So after all of that, we still have a lot of molds that it could potentially be, but we're getting through to the last few, and there are quite a few that I feel like here. There's quite a few molds that I feel like should be the surprise at some point, but whether this year is their year, I don't know. So there's molds in here like Joffert, which I didn't realise until I was doing this video, but he was introduced in 2005, and that mold has not had a regular run release since 2009. So, like, that seems insane to me because he is still a popular mold, but I don't know whether it will be him this year. We haven't had the Georg mold yet. I feel like he's going to come up as a surprise at some point. Morgan Stallion, another really popular mold. Ruffian, Salinero, Strapless, the Idicus mold, Walking Thoroughbred, Valegro, Trotting Arabian Mare, Standardbred Mare, Shire Gelding. Like, I feel like there's loads. Show Stance Arabian Mare also. These are all molds that I feel like are going to be the surprise at some point, probably. They all could be. I'm not ruling them out. But when I was going through this list of molds that are left, there were two molds that really stuck out to me, especially looking at the Seize the Day surprise theme. Because Seize the Day, right, that suggests an action pose. And I know that you can read far too much into that sort of thing because we've done it before. Like, the surprise model doesn't always correlate in any way, shape or form to the name of the surprise. But I do feel like for me, Seize the Day surprise, that suggests like action. That doesn't suggest to me that it's going to be a standing mold like Wixom Winks, the standing thoroughbred last year. It suggests to me we're going to be looking at an action pose, and there were two molds that really, really stuck out for me. So the first one is the Lipzana Stallion Adonis. And if this theme does mean anything, then this guy pretty much fits the bill. He's a popular mold, he's a relatively new mold, and I didn't realise, but we've only had 2 colour releases on the mold this year. He should, I believe, the way the Premier Club models usually go, not this year even, I mean like at all, but the way the Premier Club models usually go is they're usually Premier Club, which he was, and then Breyerfest, and then regular run, and he has not been a regular run this year. But as I said, there's only been 2 colours on the mould, so there's so much that Breyer could play with there, and he fits the theme. And he has also got a tail variation. You could have a main variation as well, and then variation collectors could lose their minds. And the other one that I'm going to mention here is the one that all the Fireheart fans are going to absolutely hate. I know there have been so many releases on that mold, it's so popular, but I mean, one year this guy is going to be the surprise model. And I do feel like this could be the year. He's had a few years now to die down in popularity. He fits the bill perfectly for like action pose, Seize the Day. He's one of the more iconic recent molds. Yeah, I feel like if you collect Fireheart, you could be in a bit of trouble. But there we go. I've been so wrong so many times before. I'm already being proved wrong in my other prediction video. So, but anyway, that's like my feeling is it's going to be some sort of action pose. There's going to be relatively new mold. I don't think they're going to go down the vintage route, even though I wish they would. So yeah, anyway, I think probably either Adonis or Fireheart, but there are also a few more that I'd put in there as the like, I'm surprised they haven't been a surprise model yet. But let me know what you think down in the comments. We'll see if I am right in any way, shape or form. And thank you very much for watching. And now we just sit and wait for Breyerfest and stalk Facebook and Instagram and YouTube to find out what the surprise model is going to be.